Nothing that was done is worth the hysteria and the hyperbole that keeps getting expressed in this courtroom.
Bryan Kohberger's defense team pushing back against claims their survey of potential jurors violated a gag order and tainted the jury pool, while prosecutors cede no ground on the issue.
If it can't be done right, or if that's what it takes to do it right, then we need to do it. This is a big case. And the finger for this cannot be pointed at anybody but the defense.
Thanks for joining me for Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Things are certainly heating up in Bryan Kohberger's case. Typically, things are pretty cordial between prosecutor Bill Thompson and Kohberger's defense attorney Ann Taylor. She actually worked for him many years ago. But things have changed a little bit and become more tense since the prosecution found out that the defense commissioned a survey of potential jurors in Latah County, Idaho. Kohberger has maintained his innocence in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students, Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Prosecutor Bill Thompson talked about the survey questions that were asked to the 400 residents in Latah County by phone. He claims those violated the court's non-dissemination order. They included things like, did you know Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' house in Pennsylvania? Did you know DNA found on the knife sheath matched Bryan Kohberger?
And the state's position is that the fact-specific questions, and I understand from Dr. Edelman why the questions are asked. I understand his explanation. It doesn't change the fact that we have a non-dissemination order that specifically prohibits that kind of dissemination of facts, specific facts about this case.
But there were questions that contained false information that really got the prosecutor mad, specifically when Bill Thompson cross-examined Dr. Bryan Edelman, who's conducting the survey. Take a look.
You acknowledge false that Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You know that to be false.
Which one?
That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims.
Yes, I was trying not to say that because.
But you knew that was false.
I did.
So we learned something new there. A couple of media outlets had reported that Bryan Kohberger stalked one of the victims in the months before the murders. The prosecutor now says that's not true. But back to the issue at hand. The prosecution believes Dr. Edelman's methods tainted the jury pool and violated the gag order. Things got a little spicy.
I'm sorry if your feelings get hurt about us raising this issue. I could see you were almost breaking down a few minutes ago when you were talking about slide number 33 on slide number 31. That's not the intent, and it's certainly I'm surprised to see that reaction from an experienced expert such as yourself. So I apologize for that.
I accept your apology. But the idea of, after working really hard 15 years to develop a credible reputation and being told, watching on a Zoom, that I am tainting the jury pool and poisoning the jury pool and contaminating the jury pool by doing what's required and standard, I'm not crying. I'm angry.
Okay.
And yes, it doesn't matter.
And please go ahead and be as angry as you like as you continue your work for the defense in this case.
So you probably detected a little sarcasm there from the prosecutor. The defense, meanwhile, fighting back against the claim that their expert violated that non-dissemination order.
We didn't violate the non-dissemination order. The information that now he's calling facts, he's flip-flopping between whether or not it's a false fact or a fact that's in the survey. The information that was put in the survey is based on the public record and information, the way that the state and state actors put information into the public record that has now been disseminated. And we have not violated that order. And I do resent being accused of that.
But Judge John Judge said there were questions featured in the survey that included false information that may have been featured in media reports or on social media, but those were not discussed in an actual public document or record, and that concerned him.
I mean, those 2 questions were not in the public record. Okay. They were. I mean, they came out, but that was not the court. The where it came from. It just came out of the media or somewhere. Who knows where it came from? But I don't think there's anything, not that I'm aware of, in the public record that said anything about that, about your client.
Dr. Edelman testified that he knew about the non-dissemination order.
Does the existence of the non-dissemination order change how you did your work?
No, it did not.
Have you worked in cases where there's a non-dissemination order at other times?
Many times.
And he said that just 3 to 4% of the people surveyed in Latah County didn't know about the case. The number of people in Latah County who did know about the case and had feelings about it was much, much higher.
Because we asked these questions, what we found is that one, like I said, very high recognition rate. So 79% of respondents knew at least 5 of these items. So the idea that we're undermining his due process rights, everybody knows all this stuff. Very high rates. 82% of respondents who recognized 7 of these items or more reported that he's guilty, compared to if they only knew 2 or fewer, only 29% thought he was guilty. And the average was 6.2. So the average number of these details people already know is 6.2.
And Dr. Edelman explained that the information he included in his questions came from media reports and the affidavit filed in support of the murder charges, information that was already out in the public.
What I did, just want to be clear, is the standard practice in the industry done hundreds of times in high-profile cases throughout this country. There's nothing I did to contaminate the jury pool. Everything I included was widely disseminated by the media in this county hundreds of times, if not more. And most of it came directly from an affidavit that the government released in a press conference and encouraged everyone to report.
Did I tell you what questions to ask?
You did not.
Would you take my advice if I told you what questions to ask?
I would not. And I'll tell you why. Is, as I mentioned, my role is to be an objective expert to provide the court with information so the court can make a decision on if any remedial measures are necessary. I don't care what questions you want in the survey, and I don't care what questions the government wants in the survey. What I want to do is conduct a valid survey that's objective, reliable, and provides meaningful information that can be used by the court.
I'll get you back to this update on Bryan Kohberger's case in just a moment, but I want to take a moment to tell you about Sheath Underwear. It's a really great company. My husband absolutely loves Sheath because they make the most comfortable underwear he's ever worn. I mean, it feels like a soft cloud. I actually have a pair of them right here, and they also offer a lot of support. He also says the fit is amazing. So if you're sick of those plain old boxers that were way too loose, Sheath fits really, really well. It's also worth noting that as the weather continues to warm up, Sheath is really great at staying cool, especially if you're working out, which a lot of people do 7 days a week. Sheath has brand new materials too, like bamboo and mesh for even more cooling comfort. So it's really great. If you're hot, it's not sticking to you like a lot of other products can do. Right now, you can go to sheathunderwear.com/crimefix for 20% off of your order. Again, that's sheathunderwear.com/crimefix to get 20% off a truly comfortable pair of underwear. I think you should check it out. Judge did not make a decision on whether the survey would start over or whether it could continue in other counties. Judge pushed back the hearing for the change of venue motion to the end of June, which probably is going to push everything in this case back. Alan Turkheimer is a jury consultant, and he has conducted these surveys in the past. So, Alan, what are your thoughts on the questions that Dr. Edelman asked to potential jurors?
I think he's doing what he wants to do to try to get the result that he's hoping to get. And that happens all the time. Maybe he pushed things a little too much and is testing the limits by having some questions in there that aren't necessarily true. But then again, from the defense perspective, it's not always about what is truthful. It's about what potential jurors believe. And if they believe something that's not truthful or that hasn't happened, they need to know about it. And I think that's the perspective he's taking with this survey and those questions that straddle the line of, did it really happen versus was it possibly reported that way?
He offered an explanation for why he had to put false information in there. And he said it was really to test bias and that this is something he's done in the past. What is your response to that?
I think he gets some credibility by having experience doing this in the past. Now, every case is different, so he could say that he's done this in the past and maybe didn't have an issue with it. But of course, it probably certainly was in a different county, was a different trial, different set of circumstances. So it's good that he has this experience and seems to know what he's doing. But that doesn't mean that he can take the kind of liberties that he may have taken if the judge says it's not okay.
Now, it's very clear, very, very clear that the prosecution wants this trial held in Latah County. They don't want this trial moved. So that's why they're having so much heartburn over there. So they're saying, well, really our issue is the fact that this violated the non-dissemination order. False information was put out there. The judge shared that concern. He said, we've tried to keep the noise out of this case. The prosecution is contending that is their concern at this point in time, whether or not this messed with the non-dissemination order. Your thoughts on that? Do you really think that crossed the line?
I think it approached it and got very close to it. And the judge might think that it did cross the line. And we can understand the prosecution's perspective that they want to have this in the county, but there are a limited number of jury eligibles or potential jurors in the county. With just under 40,000 people in the county, you start to whittle that down in terms of who's jury eligible and then who's able to serve. And even though the trial's a long ways away, the prosecution just wants the status quo and doesn't want any influence or anything to happen to the potential jury pool. That's why they're so upset about this, where the defense thinks they have a legitimate reason to get it moved. And so they are putting together this survey to look at the results just so they can go to the judge and say, look, this is a scientific tested study, and we don't think that Mr. Kohberger can get a fair trial here in Latah County.
Dr. Edelman also stated that the non-dissemination order, he was aware of it and it didn't impact how he conducted his work. And he actually took offense at some of the things that the prosecution said, basically that almost implying that he was tainting the jury pool.
Right. That's the argument the prosecution makes. And Dr. Edelman, who's done this in the past, he has his own agenda and only he knows exactly what the purpose was. Now, he's clearly wanting to learn more about the venue and he wants to detect bias. And so I can see why he'd be offended by these allegations, because it's a serious charge to say that somebody's trying to taint or tarnish prospective jurors in a case. Now, a lot of times it could be middle ground where he's really not trying to do that, but maybe the results of the survey are having that effect. And so the judge has a lot to sort through to decide what he wants to do moving forward.
He really does. And basically, Dr. Edelman said, if we're going to do this survey, if I'm going to continue, it has to be done the same way in every county, because then you have to start over. You can't just switch it up or else it's not scientific. He says he's looking at conducting an objective survey, and Judge hasn't made a decision on any of this just yet. It sounds like he's not going to say they violated the gag order. He basically said that yesterday. So the hearing on change of venue, though, has been pushed back till the end of June. It's an interesting issue, and it's getting a lot of attention. Alan Turkheimer, thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.